Welcome to East Tennessee Pinball. Today I got in this Big Guns. The game plays fairly well actually. It's just got a bunch of little bitty things, so I've got a list here. I'm probably going to add to it, but this is what I've got so far. The lower left flipper is sticky, and I have diagnosed that as not an electrical issue. It's mechanical. It's just very sticky. It's not. I don't think it's because it's too tight. Sometimes if those that the collar on the bottom of the is too tight and it's wedged in between. But I don't know if you can hear that coming up and down. So it has a little play. So I have to look at the plunger in the sleeve and make sure that there's not hadn't made WD-40'd or something, but there's obviously a problem there. The cannons, yeah. So the problem with these cannons, have you ever never seen a Big Guns? There's basically inside of there, it's like a catapult. That whole, it's like a big spoon that flips up, and it shoots a ball all the way across here. So one of these or both of these wasn't regularly, it wouldn't hit the target all the time. Sometimes it'd rattle out and come back down. So this one here on the underside, where that whole mechanism is screwed up, it wasn't screwed up very tightly. It was kind of loose and it was moving around. So I'll just pull the table up here real quick. That's the mechanism right there, and basically just re-screwed it in there and put a new coil sleeve inside the coil and clean the plunger that drives that catapult, and that apparently took care of that issue. So that one was pretty straightforward. Let's see what else we got on the list here. Sticky drop targets. Well, it's a Williams. Okay, so I haven't done that yet. Cleaning rubbers, flipper bushings. Yeah, I was looking at these bushings. They're pretty sloppy. So I'm gonna change out at least ones of the bottom ones. Top ones are a little bit not quite as bad, and frankly, the top flippers are not quite as important on this game. So I may or may not change those out. We'll see. I'm going to recap the boards. The sound all works, but it's very kind of tinny and a little staticky. I'm hoping recapping the soundboard in particular will help with that. Fix one in the back of the cabinet and repaint. So basically just kind of, it got drug a little bit and it's just frying off there. So I'm going to just reglue that. And basically the owner wanted me to just go ahead and, if I see things, go ahead and fix them. I saw some of these lights were out. These are the ones with the 555 and the little twist sockets, and I pulled that one out, put it back in, and it didn't go back, but when I was doing it, I bumped the header. But let me pull this up again. Get under here. Yeah, let's do this one here. None of those are working there. If I just lean on this a little bit, see, almost for sure those header pins that connector's on is bad. If I just bend them a little bit. Same with this one here. The two of the lights are working. That one there is not. If I press on it, it'll work again. So I'm gonna pull those boards out, reflow the solder on those. There's a couple other lights back in here. I'm assuming that's a bulb and not a flasher. I'm not positive. There's another one there that's out. Anyway, so I'm going to go through those, and I didn't see many other bulbs that are out. One more thing I saw, this plunger here is really sticky. So I'll show you a real quick way. So just quick to determine whether or not, I'm going to turn the game off real quick, whether the friction is in the plunger or it could be up in this mechanism here where everything's going around that shaft. So it's got a bottle of alcohol. I'm going to spray that top part. I didn't spray the bottom, it's just the top. So the friction was, I suspected it was just because of what I was feeling. I felt like the friction was up here in the top, and it was. So I'm going to spray a little more alcohol. I'm going to work it a little bit. Kind of work some of the gunk out of there. And when I feel like I've got most of it out, then I'll put a little 3-in-1 oil in there and That'll be fine. The alcohol will help dissolve any muck in there. So I'll let that dry up. And I'll come back with a little, just and not much, just a drop of 3-in-1. You get the metal shaft and all the metal bushings and metal pieces. So it's all metal on metal. So that's one of the few places where you might put a little oil on a pinball machine. Got just a little too much. Got a tissue here. Wipe up all you can reach. You don't want any excess oil anywhere on this game. And that'll be good. So I don't know what I'll do next. Maybe I'll pull those boards off from the bottom to get all the light lamps working. Here's this board that was on the right. You can see the cold solder. It's a little harder to see on the camera. It's easier to see in person here. It's about as close as I can get. Let's look at the other one here. This one, all of them were working but one. I think it was, I believe it was this one was the one that was not working. In any case, I'll reflow them all and see if that helps a little bit. If you're wondering why I'm soldering the front of the board, is the back of the board has those little plastics on there. So all right, we'll throw that on the game and see if it fixed anything. Yeah, it's really strobing with these LEDs. I've got them sitting there. I don't have them. I just have them laying here before I take the trouble of pushing them in there. I just want to make sure they're all working, and they are. So that's good. Found one more lamp that's not working. This skull and crossbone, and it's the same exact issue. It's on this little board. If I press on this connector here, it's the last one on the left. It will light up. Actually staying lit until I push it back the other way. If I wiggle it around, it'll turn off again, except when you're watching. Well, trust me, before it was not working, I pressed it came on, and then I wiggled it to get it off. Anyway, I'm gonna pull this off, do just like I did on the other one, and just resolder those real quick. It's really just this last one on the left, and I can see it here with my reading glasses on. This one there has got a pretty good fracture on it. The rest of them actually don't look bad, but I've got the board off, so I'm going to just go ahead and take care of all of them. That should do it. So it's the next morning for me. I've got the power supply here on the bench. I'm going to swap out these caps. Actually, these three, I'm not going to do them right now because I don't have them on. I've got them on order.
these axial ones, but these other ones, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to take them all out here real quick. I'm going to start by just flowing a little fresh solder on the back of the board, just makes sucking it off a little bit easier. It's a big, heavy tray, so it's really, you gotta really apply some heat to it. I think I got it. May not have. So that's a 1025 volt. So I'll grab one of those. That's 1025. It looks like the towards the top is labeled the positive. Turn on the fan here. Get rid of a little bit of the smoke. So that one is a, what the heck is it? Okay, there we go. 4763 volts. I got a 4750 and a 4700. So the voltage, you always want you gotta match the capacitance, and the voltage is, you want to be the same or higher. So I'm going to go with this 47100, and the positive is towards this side here. And it's labeled on both sides. I'm going to have to clear that off. That one's not. These power supply boards, the tracers are so big that it really takes some dwell to get all that. I still didn't get it quite out. That might have done it. That might have made it worse. turn my iron up just a little bit. All right, so got those two. Oh, mine look just like the other ones. All right, so we'll do this one here next. I'm just gonna heat it and pull it off. Sometimes some of these boards are so tough. I'll handle it. I'll put a little fresh solder on there still. Just going back and wobbling it back and forth from the other side. There we go. And it's out. And this is 3310, or is that what? No, that's 33010. Yep. That'd be a pretty big 3310. Yep, 33010. I don't know where it went, but it's a 33010. 33025. And the positive is away from the edge. Do this one right here. That one is 125. $135, that'll work. So positives towards the interior of the board. And I just put that in backwards. Do it again. These polarized caps, bad things can happen when you put them in backwards. A lot of times they'll just immediately fail. It's a good idea to, when you're done with these, check them all, make sure they're they're all good. By the way, the long lead's always a positive, and also there's a stripe down the side, which is the negative. So when you're putting them in, the easiest way is I usually look at the leads, the long lead. But from the top, you can just look at the see that stripe there? That's the negative side. So that one says you get the little positive mark there. Hard for y'all to see probably. That's the positive right there on the board. That's negative on the other side. That's one I just did. It's hardly labeled. I don't think that one's labeled on the top. It's labeled on the bottom. There's a positive towards the inside. That's positive. This one, there's a little tiny positive right there. That's the positive side. And then there's this one here. There's a little tiny positive right there. Then a screwdriver, and that's the positive side. So I believe we're done. 2, 3, 4. I think we got them all. 2, 3, 4. So I'm gonna just wash these off with a little bit of alcohol. This solder I'm using has non-conductive flux and shouldn't be corrosive either. So this is mostly cosmetics, but it just keeps it from looking ugly. The other thing I'm going to do real quick while I got the board out here is, let's know how well y'all could see this. If I can get it in the field of view there. Some of those, let me just take that off the stand here. Some of those pins, I'll just zoom in there a little bit, that helps. Some old solder joints out one on the bottom right. I don't know if you can see that. It's not horrible, but that ain't good. It's not, I'm not sure what that pin goes to, but it's not as happy as it ought to be. Some of these other ones, those look pretty decent. That one on the end, maybe not. Look on the other side here. Usually the ones on the ends, because they're taking the most torque. Those don't look too awful bad. But it only takes, well, that thing's nasty. I'll probably just go ahead and reflow. It just takes a second while it's out and alleviate problems down the line. Jeez. Yeah, it's such a large copper pad. It's really sucking the heat off of here. Taking a while to get heated up. Ideally, you're not touching the solder directly to the soldering iron because you burn all your flux away right away. But it does help to kind of get it started, because until you get things a little bit wet, you can't really transfer the heat well. So you can't get it hot enough to get the flux going. So sometimes it's helpful to just get a little bit on there. But for the most part, you should be putting the solder, the wire into the pool of molten solder. I guess what I'm saying is, to get a pool of molten solder, sometimes it's helpful to touch it to the iron just for a second to get it started. That's particularly true of old boards where they're old and crusty and you're taking parts out, because you just can't get the heat transfer. See, like that's all nasty and dirty. It's really worthwhile just clean that up a little bit before to try to reflow the solder, because it's just going to essentially incorporate all that dirt and nastiness into the solder, and it won't be a good joint. You don't have to dry this off, but it kind of minimizes the amount of that chalky looking finish afterwards. If you want to really be thorough, you can go ahead and suck the solder off all these before you reflow them. That is the more thorough way to do it, but that takes considerably more time, and frankly most people don't want to pay for that. It really helps to have a decent soldering iron with a PID controller. Basically, depending on what you're doing, it will kind of compensate and give you more power, because like these things, it's really sucking the heat off. So it's like it kind of realizes, okay, I know what I'm doing. Like for the right now, my iron went up to 400 because it was thinking I was soldering these joints. So it's thinking I need to keep delivering power to keep up. And now that I'm done with that, it'll come back down and it'll kind of get it into a different mode. So depending on what mode you're doing, it will kind of try to keep up with what you're doing. So when you're doing a bunch of stuff like this, it'll like keep the power up to try to keep the iron hot. So anyway, I think I'm done with this. When those come in next week, I'll throw those in there. I'm going to put this back in the game, boot it up, make sure it's working. Then I'm going to pull out the soundboard and recap it. Hopefully that will fix a lot of the sound issues. So I threw the soundboard back in there and everything was good. So I'm going to recap, or put the power supply back in there. Everything was good. I pulled out the soundboard. I'm going to recap it. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So these are the bigger ones. I'll change all those, and looks like there's 1, 2, 3, another 4 little small ones. Don't forget the small ones. Sometimes these are the more important ones actually in terms of making the sounds. I don't think I see any other ones. The non-electrolytic ones, generally you don't need to mess with them. Like the little caps that look like resistors, basically, like there's one that says C6. Those are usually, you don't have to worry about those at all. So I'm gonna start by taking off the big ones, and we'll go. If you don't like watching soldering, just fast forward a little bit. It'll be over in a while. I had some people basically say don't fast forward through all of it, so I'm just gonna play the whole thing, and if you want to fast forward, just skip it. Make sure these things are labeled. Sometimes these boards don't have a positive and negative label. This one does. Okay. occasionally you'll take them out and they're not labeled, and then you don't know which way they go back in. You got to go back to schematics, and that's a real pain. And very rarely they're labeled wrong. So it's kind of a good idea to take a look at them either way. When I say labeled, they're labeled on the board wrong. Very rarely, but it does happen. Okay, so these two are 100 UF 16 volts. Oh, sorry, 1016 volts. Got 1025. So that'll work. 1025s. Stick these in there. Okay, so now I'll do those interior ones. Yeah, they're right there. Without looking at the schematics, I'm pretty sure these are on the power supply side of things, because these things have like a plus 100 and minus 100 volts. So these are 470 16 volt, and I got 470 25s. That'll work. If you're doing this yourself, there's a lot of people that sell these cap kits, so you can have them all. If you do them pretty frequently, it's a lot more economical to just buy a bunch of them. I get most of my caps from Mouser. You can also kind of make sure you're getting good quality. A lot of places will sell good quality, but not everybody does. The one thing I wouldn't do is go on eBay and buy them, because you will get crap. It may not even be the right part. And yeah, generally buying electronics on eBay is a bad idea. I've done it. Occasionally it's like there are nobody that will sell anything except for on eBay, and that's really the most likely time you're going to get burned, because these people take advantage of that situation and they'll mislabel chips, and you figure, well, let's just take a gamble and try it. If you happen to know the vendor, or it's, you know, they've got a good track record, you might try it, but as a rule, I'd stay off eBay for buying your electronic components. There are a lot of hucksters. eBay's where they like to sell. So this is 135. If you haven't seen me desoldering before, this is a Vampire Tool solder sucker. Ronnie over there at Joe's Arcade, he pitches these things and says it's the best one in the world, and it is. He's absolutely right. Made in Japan. They're awesome. I like it better than the electric solder suckers, and I've tried even the Hakko electric solder sucker. I like this one better. For a manual one, they're kind of on the pricey side, but they're worth it. Okay, so 135. And I got 135, okay. Let's pull it out of here. Long lead goes on the positive side. Alright, let's take this little dude here. And that one is another 135. 100 UF 35 volts, that is. There's one, one goes in the positive. And one last 100 UF 35 volts. And the long goes in the positive. All right. Okay, that should be all those. I'm just going real quick. Just looking to make sure I've got them all in the correct way. And I do. Alright, so I'm going to pull off the rest of these, I think. So that's I believe that's a 10 UF 25 volts 1025, 1025, and a 1025. So I'm gonna just go ahead and pull them all off at once. And they've got the little notch there at the top, the banded, that's going to the positive sides. That's how you know those are. I'm gonna end up putting in radial to replace these, which will be fine on this. Get my finer solder for this. I usually go ahead and cut these. Try to cut the longer lead. There. I've got something to hold on to. So I was trying to leave as much of that as possible. I'll give it a straighten it out. And if you do it quick, you can get it out without burning yourself. So I'm just going to go ahead and get the rest of these. Okay, they're all gone. And now that I can hold them up and look at them closely, I'll see what they actually are. I'll find my glasses out. I'm gonna pause y'all for a second. Okay, so they are indeed all 1025 volts, so I'll go ahead and clean the solder out of all the holes. Never did fresh solder in these, but actually the solder was pretty good shape, amazingly. This is like a, I don't know, 1980s game. Yeah, there it is. Got them all. So we said a 1025. I've got 1050s. Oh, shoot, here's some that are. These are already loose down the bottom. Three. That's what I need. 4 of them. So just kind of bend them so they fit. I try to keep them up off the board a little bit. And these are all oriented positive towards the top, and that's the way I've got them all in there. That's falling out. All right. Alright, that should do it. Flip all these leads. Check out these header pins real quick. Take you out with me. Actually, using the camera zoomed in, it's kind of a good way to look at them. Yeah, that one on the far right got a little bit of a crease there. Again, it's not horrible, but it ain't good. And it's out. It's really hardly even worth checking. You might as well just flow them, I'm thinking. And why not? These little small ones are usually not a problem, and they're also real easy to bridge, so I probably won't mess with those. I won't do those with the resistor pack. It's a resistor pack underneath there. Those things can kind of be fragile, so I'm going to do just these header pins here, and those header pins there, and those header pins there real quick. But I'm going to clean them up first. Put y'all back on the stand. Alright, clean this off just a smidge. It's just alcohol, but still it needs, I'll give it 5 minutes or so before I put it in the game. It's better be safe than sorry. Definitely don't want to fry something over your haste, especially if you get on the top of the board. The alcohol gets underneath one of these chips. It can sit there for a little bit. I'm gonna stick this in front of the fan for about 5 minutes, and then we'll give it a shot.
All right, so I got the boards back in here. I'm gonna boot it up. Start a game, see if we get some sounds going. There we go.
the sounds are, I don't know if you could tell on the video, but the sounds are considerably better. So the main things left, I still gotta fix this lazy flipper, rebuild these, and drop targets are sticky. The other thing I realized, a couple seconds when I booted it up, I had an error say check switch 17, which is one of the drop targets. I went through the switch test, and none of the drop targets are registering with the so they're none of the switches for the drop targets, so they're opto based. I was thinking maybe it's a column. The in lanes, the switch here, 23 and 24, or maybe that's vice versa, are on the same column as the drop target, so it's not a column that's out. Probably has to do with those opto boards, would be my suspicion. I got to take them apart anyway to clean them, so I'm going to take them apart, take a look at those optos, maybe resolder the optos, and physically clean the lenses on those optos, and a lot of times that'll take care of it. And but I'll save that one maybe for another video. This one's getting pretty long, so anyway, if you like the video, click like and subscribe. Adios.